Our preschool did the same harvest trip every year to a nearby pumpkin farm. Pure chaos, but the good kind. The kind that makes the early mornings and permission slips feel like they add up to something. The kids wore knit hats shaped like foxes and bears. Parents hovered with their phones like we were filming an autumn commercial. I'd been there since dawn, setting out tables, straightening name tags, making sure no one's allergy got forgotten. That's when he walked up. Tan jacket, baseball cap, easy, unbothered smile. "I'm with the farm," he said, scooping up a crate like he'd done it 100 times. And just like that, he was folded into the day. He was everywhere. Handing out kid-sized pumpkins, fixing the ring toss when it collapsed, ferrying trays of tiny cider cups. He was helpful without being pushy. The kind of quiet, competent presence that reads as someone's dad. I relaxed around him without even thinking about it. The only odd thing, every time a parent raised their phone, he moved. Turned his head, stepped aside, drifted out of frame. I noticed, but I wrote it off. Some people hate cameras. Some people hate Facebook. By mid-morning, he'd helped with everything. Set up games, keeping the kids in a line that only sort of wiggled, even picking up trash. So when the farm owner, Dan, wandered over and asked, "Who's your helper?" I laughed. "Yours," I said. "Thought you sent him." Dan's brow creased. "We're short-staffed today." "Who are you talking about?" I pointed toward the parking lot. Tan jacket stood a few yards away, watching our line of preschoolers as they trailed toward the petting zoo. He wasn't watching the goats, he was watching the kids. "I'll go say hi," Dan said, already heading his way. The man shifted his weight, hands sunk in his pockets like he was waiting for a bus or a queue. For the first time all day, my skin prickled. I realized I didn't know his name. Couldn't remember him signing in, couldn't picture where he'd come from exactly. Kayla, my co-teacher, came up beside me. "Who's that?" she asked. "I thought he was farm staff," I said. "I thought he was with you," she answered. When I looked back, he was still there, close enough that I could see the brim of his cap tilt as the kids squealed at the goats. "Hands on the rope, friends," I called, voice bright, a little too bright. The kind you use when you're papering over nerves. Hayride time. We loaded everyone onto the wagon. I counted once, twice, then a third time for luck. The tractor rattled off. When we rolled back in, I scanned the lot for the tan jacket. He was gone. Dan found me by the cider tent, his phone in his hand, his face gone flat and pale. "I asked him for ID," he said. "He told me he was with your group." Then he slipped off when I turned away. Dan swallowed. "I just saw a bulletin." He turned the phone so I could see, a mugshot, same eyes, same unassuming smile. Underneath, "Wanted for interstate offenses involving minors." It didn't hit like a jump scare. It landed like an echo, like a fact the air had known all along, and my brain was only now catching up to. I kept pouring cider while Dan called the sheriff. My hands didn't shake. They just didn't stop. Cups overflowed. A deputy arrived quietly. No sirens. Parents drifted around, collecting last photos, oblivious by design. We didn't want to panic. Officers spread out across the property. A mom started a sing-along so the kids wouldn't notice the crackle of radios or the men in uniforms moving through the trees. They didn't find him. Just a trail of boot prints in the mud by the parking lot, blurring into the road. I didn't sleep that night. I replayed every moment, his calm voice, the way he'd stood just behind me while I handed out snacks, how easily he'd become part of the scenery. The next morning, we rewrote everything. Volunteer wristbands, ID checks for anyone who so much as lifted a cone. No exceptions, no matter how helpful or familiar they looked. Parents grumbled until they saw my face and stopped. A week later, a deputy came by for a follow-up. "We're still looking," he said. I described the man again. The tan jacket, the constant sidestepping of cameras, how he'd always stayed just on the edges of things. In words, it sounded so plain, so ordinary. That was the worst part. There was nothing cinematic about him. He was built to blend. Time moved on. The news cycle rolled away, but something in me stayed stuck on that field. I started scanning faces without thinking, at the grocery store, in school hallways, in any place where kids gathered. I still volunteer at the farm, but now I hover by the gate, eyes always moving. Sometimes I think about the parents who thanked me that day. "Thanks for making it so fun," they said, smiles wide, kids sticky with cider. "Of course," I told them, smiling back. Inside, I was replaying the moment he leaned in to pass me a stack of cups. That easy grin, how close his hand came to mine. The farm added rules, laminated badges, more staff, tighter boundaries. We told ourselves it couldn't happen again, but that's the problem with people like him. They look like the kind who help. Last October, at the next harvest day, I spotted another tan jacket by the parking lot. For a split second, my heart just stopped. When I focused, I saw it was just a dad helping his kid wrestle a pumpkin into a wagon. He caught me watching and waved. I waved back. I didn't truly exhale until I saw his car pull away. People want a clean ending. Arrest made, justice served, threat neutralized. Real life doesn't always hand that over. Sometimes the most terrifying part is what happened. It's how close something came to happening. Now every field trip starts the same way. I check badges. I count hands. I make sure I know exactly who belongs to whom. The kids sing about leaves and scarecrows. Parents snap photos. The day looks exactly like it should. Later, when those pictures show up in my inbox, I always scroll through them slowly. My eyes never stay on the smiling faces in the center. They drift to the edges, searching the background for anyone who looks like they belong, when they really don't. Halloween in Madison was tradition for me and my roommates. State Street turned into a moving carnival every year, bass thudding between brick buildings, steam curling off travel mugs, costumes ranging from elaborate artwork to a hoodie and a pair of ears. That year I had silver wings and far too much glitter. Danny went all in as a disco queen. Kelly was a vampire tottering on platform boots. We left our place near Gorham around 9, buzzed on peppermint schnapps and that irrational optimism that blooms before nights that go wrong. We spilled into the crowd. Bananas dancing, witches posing, someone handing out lollipops from a plastic cauldron. The street felt wild but safe, the way Halloween tricks you. It's chaos with guardrails, or it feels that way. The first time I noticed him, he was just background. In a sea of color, one guy in black. Black jeans, black hoodie, cheap black dust mask like you'd buy at a hardware store. No props, no details, just blank. "Commit to a bit, I guess," I said to Danny, nodding toward him. She squinted. "That's minimal effort." We laughed and kept walking. He didn't. He didn't do anything. But every bar line, every crosswalk, he was there. Never right behind us, never far. If we stopped to take a picture, he stopped too. If we crossed, he crossed. Parallel, not pushy. Somehow that was worse. Inside a bar, we danced, took selfies, thawed out. For 20 minutes, I forgot about him. Then we stepped back into the cold and I saw him again, 4 people back in the moving stream. Same black mask, catching reflected streetlight. "He's still following us," I told Kelly. "Then he's following like a gentleman," she said, rolling her eyes. "Creeps love crowds, they get to hide in plain sight." She wasn't wrong, but it had stopped being funny. At every pause, he hovered across the street or behind taller costumes. When I glanced back, he tilted his head down or slipped behind someone. Never a word, never even a visible expression. Just there, it was the stillness that twisted my stomach. Everyone else stumbled, laughed, spilled drinks. He moved like he was working a job. Around 11, I decided to break whatever pattern we were in. I ducked into a side bar just to pee, I told them. I waited in line, checked my glitter, reminded myself I was probably being dramatic. After I pushed out a back door for air and found myself alone in a narrow alley with a single weak lamp buzzing overhead, I texted our group chat, "Meet at Whiskey Jackson 10. Then I saw him. He stood at the far end of the alley. Same clothes, same mask, facing me directly. Not walking forward, not walking away, just there. "Hey," I called out, more to see what my own voice sounded like than anything. He didn't answer. The door swung open behind me, spilling laughter and music into the cold. I slipped back inside like I'd only stepped out to check the weather, heart racing, trying to pace normal over it. I found Danny and told her. She squeezed my hand. "Stay with me. We'll walk together." We rejoined the river of bodies, arms linked. Every time I risked a look back, I caught pieces of him. A shoulder here, the edge of the mask there. He moved when we moved. Never closing the gap, never making contact. That calm, patient distance felt worse than if he'd run at us. By midnight, we were done. Kelly's feet were blistered. Danny's glitter had migrated to her eyes, and I just wanted walls and a locked door. We veered off State Street toward our car. With every block, the noise thinned. Space opened up. That's when I realized we were basically alone. I turned, nobody behind us. "He's gone," I said. Danny exhaled. "Told you it was fine." We piled into the car, blasted the heat. My phone buzzed, a text from our friend Bry, "Send the pic with the creepy guy." I scrolled. Bathroom mirror shot. Crowd selfie with cartoonish devil horns. Blurry street photo from across the way. I zoomed in, expecting to catch him in the background, lurking somewhere soft-focused. He wasn't in any of them. Not one. Not in pictures taken when I knew he was just feet away. We laughed it off, because what else do you do when something feels wrong and it's already over? We blamed bad angles and cheap cameras and maybe one too many shots. The next day it still gnawed at me, so we went to campus police. We didn't expect much. It just felt important to say it out loud. The officer on duty listened, took notes. "Did he ever speak to you?" "Touch you?" "No," we said. "Still good to log," he replied. "Patterns matter." We handed over the photos, the ones with no trace of him. The officer nodded like he'd heard a version of this before, especially after Halloween weekend. We left with a pamphlet on staying safe in crowds. Maybe he was just a guy in a mask who knew exactly how to stay out of frame. Maybe every photo really did miss him. Maybe my brain embellished shadows after sugar and alcohol. I've told myself all those maybes. None of them sit right. The next Halloween we went back. Of course we did. That's what you do when you're young and trying to prove fear doesn't get to redraw your life. We stuck to bigger groups this time. Checked in every hour. Told friends exactly where we'd be. State Street was still a mess of music and costumes. Still fun. Still pretend. But I kept catching myself sweeping the crowd, searching for the plainest outfit, the least effort, the mask you wouldn't look at twice. Because real horror doesn't always wear fangs or fake blood. Sometimes it chooses the most forgettable face in the room and looks straight at you. October in Salem sells itself. I never needed to lean on gimmicks. The houses do all the heavy lifting. Old colonials with wavy glass windows, mantels carved a lifetime ago, fireplaces that still hold the ghost of smoke in their bricks. They whisper their own stories. My job as an agent is just to unlock the door. That Saturday was textbook fall. Cold enough that your breath hung in the air. Warm enough that the coffee in your hand felt indulgent instead of necessary. I've been prepping this listing for weeks. A 2-story white colonial with black shutters and a slim backyard that ended at a small public park. It had what people came to Salem for. Wide plank floors. Crown molding. Built-in shelves in the study that leaned just a little. Authentic charm, every buzzword made real. The open house was at 1. I like to arrive at least an hour early, straighten everything, catch any last-minute problems before strangers do. The sellers had already moved to Vermont, so the house was empty except for a few staging touches, pumpkins on the steps, a throw over a borrowed chair, my unlit cinnamon candle scenting the entry. Festival traffic meant I had to park half a block away. I carried my "Open House 1:04 p.m." sign to the corner, set it where the tourist stream would see it, and headed up the walk. People in scarves and witch hats drifted past, sipping cider. Salem in October always looks like a movie, and that morning it felt gentle, almost wholesome. The key turning in the lockbox sounded normal, familiar. Click, twist, control handed to me for the afternoon. The front door opened with a soft, tired groan, old wood shifting on old hinges. I started my usual loop: thermostat, lights, blinds adjusted to soften, not flatten the sun. The floors sighed as I walked, and I smiled. Old houses complain, it's part of their charm. Halfway down the hallway, I stopped. 2 muddy footprints marked the polished floor. For a second, I didn't process them. They were just shapes where there shouldn't be shapes. 2 prints leading from the den toward the front door, then 2 more, lighter, as if whoever it was had paused near the rug. The last contractor had left 2 days earlier. I'd done the final walkthrough myself. It hadn't rained since yesterday, and I knew these floors had been cleaned then. I knelt. Men's boots, maybe size 10 or 11. The tread had a broken chevron in the middle, like old work boots. The mud smell was faint under something else: stale beer, the sour edge of a hangover. I straightened slowly and looked toward the den. The door stood half open, exactly how I'd left it, but the air held a thin, steady draft that hadn't been there before. I followed it to the back of the room. One window was raised no more than an inch, not enough for a body, just enough to let the outside in. I went still and listened. A faint clink drifted from outside. Glass on wood, maybe. A bottle against a curb, I told myself. Fest crowds, no big deal. But the listing sheet on the front table read vacant, and the house itself disagreed. I stepped back into the foyer, out onto the porch, and called the non-emergency number. "Hi, this is an agent holding an open house on Elm Street," I said. "The property is supposed to be empty, but there are signs someone's been inside. I'm outside now. Could you send a unit to check?" The dispatcher told me to wait on the porch. I agreed, hung up, and tried very hard not to look like someone waiting for the police. I leaned on the post and pretended to watch the park. Dogs tugged leashes. Kids chased each other. Couples cradled coffee cups, normal on top of normal. Then I saw him. A man in a long, dirty green coat stood half hidden behind a tree, facing the house. He didn't do anything, just swayed lightly on his feet. His hair was matted, his clothes hung loose. When a couple walked by, he ducked his head and pretended to look at a phone he didn't seem to have. I kept my face neutral, turned just enough so I could watch him in the reflection of the door glass. My hand hovered near the deadbolt, not quite touching. Then a sound drifted from inside the house. So soft I almost missed it. A faint scrape, like something thin dragging over wood. It came from the parlor closet. I took one careful step backward into the threshold. My heart hammered hard enough that I could feel it in my throat, but I made my body stay slow. The scrape came again. Faster this time, like something or someone adjusting its weight among hangers and shelves. I stepped all the way out, shut the front door, and turned the lock. The brass was cold under my fingers. My skin felt slick, but the deadbolt slid into place with a clean thunk. I waited. The man under the tree didn't move. Minutes stretched. Cars passed. The air tasted metallic, like pre-storm weather, even though the sky was perfectly clear. 2 cruisers finally rounded the corner. One stopped in front of the house, the other pulled up by the park. Relief hit so sharp it felt almost like embarrassment. A woman around my age and an older man climbed the front steps. I ran through everything quickly: footprints, window, noises. They told me to stay outside. I listened to the sounds I usually made myself: footsteps along hallway boards, doors opening, closing, the faint buzz of their radios. Across the street, the other officer approached the man in the green coat. He didn't run. He just talked, hands moving in sloppy arcs like he was trying to explain a really complicated story. The older cop came back out of the house and gave me the look you give someone who's technically right, but doesn't need to be scared the way they are. They'd found where he'd gotten in. After a contractor forgot to latch the window, the man had slipped in and spent the night in the den with an old staging blanket. When my car pulled up that morning, he panicked, climbed out through the cracked window and drifted around to the park. He wasn't aggressive, just drunk, cold, and looking for shelter. The pattern on his boots matched the footprints exactly. "Looks like you startled him as much as he startled you," the older officer said with a half smile. I nodded, but it didn't feel equal. I kept picturing myself humming through the empty house, not knowing someone had been sleeping in the next room hours earlier, or might still have been there when I walked in. The second officer showed me how the window latch hadn't fully caught. "Lock these tight," he said. "Old houses are easy if someone's determined." "I'll add it to my checklist," I told him. They took the man to a shelter instead of booking him. I was grateful for that. But once they left, the silence inside the house felt different. Less charming, more hollow. I stood in the foyer, looking at the drying prints. They already seemed older, like stains from a storm long past. I grabbed paper towels and wiped the floor until it shone. I could have canceled the open house. No one would have second-guessed it, but professionalism is part pride, part denial. I told myself everything was secure now. The scare was over. People were expecting me, so I stayed. By 1, the first couple from Boston arrived, smelling of coffee and October optimism. They didn't notice how often my eyes flicked toward the front door. More people came. Voices filled the quiet rooms. The house almost felt like itself again. Almost. Every so often my gaze snagged on the closed parlor closet. I remembered the scrape. I imagined what it would have felt like if that door had opened while I stood alone. The open house ended smoothly. 3 solid leads, 1 maybe offer. On paper, a success. In my body, not so much. When I locked up, calm never fully returned. I checked every door and window twice. Then I checked them again. The next weekend, I hosted another open house, different house, same pumpkins. This time, I brought a colleague. When she stepped out to grab something from her car, I noticed my shoulders tense. I found myself listening not to her footsteps leaving, but to what might fill the silence if they didn't come back quickly. I still love old houses. I still line mantles with pumpkins and throw blankets so they look like storybook postcards. But I keep one eye on the doors now. People in Salem love to talk about hauntings, about bumps in the night. The thing about ghosts is, they don't leave muddy prints. They don't rattle windows or sleep on your floors. I've decided I'd take a ghost any day. Ghosts sell stories. People sell locks. I took the hayride job for extra cash and a little headspace. It wasn't hard. Stamp hands, count heads, wave the wagon out into the dark field. Kids shrieked at every bump. Parents warmed their hands on cider cups. Couples posed under the lights like it was their first October on Earth. Our boss, Tom, had one non-negotiable: counts. 20 up, 20 back, he'd say. Write it down every time. By mid-October, I had it beat for beat. 5 rides a night, about 15 minutes each. Load, rattle through the corn, unload, repeat. That Saturday felt like any other until it didn't. At 8:15, a loose group of teenagers wandered up. 19 of them. I clicked my counter, jotted the number down, and told Dee, the tractor driver. 19, maybe 2 more coming. Dee used to drive school buses. Nothing rattled her, she shrugged. Close enough. The wagon creaked out into the dark. I stayed at the gate with a late-arriving couple, stamped their hands, watched the lights from Dee's tractor fade into the rows. My radio hissed. "You got a copy, station." It was Dee. "Go ahead," I said. "Check your sheet, I've got 20. I frowned, looked at my clipboard. You left with 19, count again. A pause. I'm telling you there's 20. They're quiet. Just sitting in the back. I scanned the lot. No one had slipped past me. The gate was still chained. The other tractor sat parked. If someone had run up, I would have seen them. Her voice had a new edge when she came back on. They're just back there, not talking. When the wagon returned, families tumbled down, laughing, complaining about hay in their shoes. I counted as they passed. 17, 18, 19. That's it, I said. Dee's face had gone gray under the floodlights. No, she said. There were 20 the whole ride. Last row. I climbed up into the wagon. The back bench was empty, but the straw held an impression, an oval hollow the size of a person's weight. When I pressed my hand to it, the hay was still warm. Tom didn't buy it. You miscounted, he said. Cold night, kids bundled up, happens. Maybe it did. Still, I wrote it down on my clipboard. Driver reports extra passenger. The next 2 rides were uneventful. This is how fear works. It makes you doubt your own notes. Just before closing, the radio crackled again. Not funny anymore, Dee said. He's back. Her voice was tight now. When the wagon rolled in, I counted 19 riders again. Same hollow in the far right corner. Same lingering warmth. I took Tom to see it. For once his confidence slipped. We'll check the cameras, he muttered. The security footage showed what we expected at first. People boarding, laughing, settling in. The wagon trundling out into the dark field. But as it came back into the lot, just one frame before it stopped, something flickered across the bottom of the screen. A pale, crouched shape near the back corner. Human-shaped but blurred like motion smeared across the lens. Lens flare, Tom said. Lens flare doesn't cast a shadow, I replied. He didn't answer. That night when we closed the office, a small black duffel bag sat on the counter. None of us had seen anyone bring it in. No one claimed it. Inside, a brittle hospital wristband, yellowed white. A folded scrap of paper with a single word, Andrew, and a photo album. The photos were dated by haircuts and clothes, early 2000s probably. Our hayride wagon appeared in a lot of them. Same field. Same gate. In one picture, a boy sat in the back row, elbows on his knees, gazing toward the dark horizon. A hospital band glinted on his wrist. Tom exhaled hard. Local kid playing games. We'll drop it at the sheriff's office in the morning. He zipped the bag closed. That's when Dee called from outside. Hey, there's a guy here asking about lost and found. Says he left a bag. Tom and I traded a look. Play it normal, he said under his breath. I stayed behind the counter while he went to the door. The man who came in wore a gray jacket, brown hair neatly cut, face calm, almost nondescript. Left my bag here, he said. Black duffel, small. Tom asked for ID. The man patted his pockets. Must have left it in the car. What's your name? Tom asked. Andrew, he said. Tom froze for a beat, then forced his voice casual. Wait here. He stepped outside toward the lot. Through the front window, I saw him motion to the deputy parked by the entrance. The man turned his attention to me. His smile didn't waver. Long night? He asked. Always, I said, keeping one hand near the radio. He nodded slowly, like he was listening to something beyond the room. You looked in the album, didn't you? I opened my mouth, but before I could respond, the door swung open again. The deputy stepped in, calm but firm. Sir, let's talk outside. Andrew's eyes flicked between us. It's mine, he said quietly. Then he went with the deputy without another word. We handed over the bag, the album, the wristband that night. The sheriff's office logged it, thanked us. By morning, the bag and its contents were gone. Transferred, we were told. We changed our protocol. Double counts for every ride. One staffer on board, rope across the back step. Nothing strange happened again. I don't think I believe in ghosts. Not exactly. I believe in loops, in stories that repeat themselves until someone forces an ending. Maybe that's all we did, gave something an exit it had been waiting for. Maybe that's all we do, every October without realizing. Every October, my friends and I went to the same drive-in. It was our ritual. Blankets in the hatchback, popcorn everywhere, and a horror double feature glowing against the sky like a temporary moon. That year, the marquee promised Creature from the Black Lagoon and Night of the Living Dead. We pulled in early, parked dead center, and built our nest of quilts and snacks. The lot hummed with that warm, suspended feeling of people waiting for the lights to dim. Kids wove between bumpers chasing glow sticks. A couple slow danced by the concession stand, framed in neon. The breeze stirred the blankets now and then, just enough to make the night feel alive. I leaned back and let the radio feed the movie's audio through our speakers, a little crackly, a little perfect. Halfway through the first film, I volunteered for more popcorn. The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked. Every step echoed weirdly. For a moment, I thought someone was pacing in sync with me on the other side of a row. I shook it off. Drive-ins warp sound. At the counter, a tired teenager slid a grease-stained bag under the plexiglass. "Enjoy the show," he said. I turned back toward our car, juggling popcorn and soda. That's when I saw movement. Something low, slipping between two lines of vehicles. A crouched figure moved from shadow to shadow. They held a flashlight angled at the ground. At first I assumed it was an employee helping someone find lost keys. Then they stepped into a sliver of light. No uniform, just dark clothes and a ski mask pushed down to the neck. The flashlight beam jerked. For a brief second it flashed across the object in their other hand. Long, rigid, metallic. My brain tried to file it under prop. Everyone here was playing pretend. Maybe it was part of some elaborate costume, but the way they moved didn't feel like a performance. It felt like searching. The flashlight swung in my direction. I ducked behind a pickup, heart banging against the soda cup. I tried not to breathe loud enough to hear. The beam crawled over the gravel where I'd just been. I heard the small, steady crunch of boots. The crowd howled with laughter at something on the screen, oblivious. The contrast felt surreal. When the light drifted away, I slid between bumpers, staying low. Every car suddenly felt too far apart. It took forever to reach ours. "Get in," I said as soon as I was close enough. "Lock the doors." Now, Lauren blinked at me. "What? Just do it." Something in my voice must have gotten through. She grabbed the key fob and hit lock. Our doors clicked shut. Somewhere deeper in the lot, a horn began to blare. One long, unbroken blast. Another horn joined it. Then another. The noise swelled like a siren the crowd had invented for itself. The radio cut into the movie sound, the manager's voice thin with forced calm. "Please stay in your vehicles. Security is responding." Nobody listened at first. Panic moves faster than instructions. Doors slammed. Engines coughed to life. Headlights flared, blinding half the lot. Cars tried to back out at once, angles colliding. Someone reversed into another car hard enough that the crunch echoed. Kids started crying. Voices shouted over each other. In our side mirror, something dark darted between the cars. "Running now." I saw the mask, the glint of metal, then they vanished behind a minivan. "Start the car," Lauren said. I turned the key far enough for power, not ignition. Around us, brake lights washed everything in red. A family across the way huddled inside their SUV, the parents' mouths moving, faces edged with fear. Then blue strobes swept the lot. A patrol car pulled in, then another. Their floodlights sliced through the confusion, painting everything harsh and clear. The masked figure froze under that brightness. Crouch position, halfway between rows. Officers shouted commands we couldn't make out through glass and movie noise. Slowly, the person raised their hands and dropped to their knees. The metal object, a gun, fell to the gravel with a dull clatter. For a suspended moment, no one breathed. Then an officer moved in, cuffed them, and led them toward the cruiser. Relief hit so completely it left me shaky. My hands trembled on my lap. The radio voice returned. "Everything is under control." Please remain in your vehicles until officers direct you to exit. The crowd unwound in small increments. Parents hugged kids, couples murmured, some people even turned back to the screen. The projector had never stopped. The monster kept lurching at the camera like the world hadn't just bent sideways. When it was our turn to leave, an officer signaled us forward. As we rolled past the spot where the figure had knelt, all that remained on the gravel was spilled popcorn and a single shoe. The next day, the drive-in posted a short statement. An armed individual had been apprehended. No injuries. Security measures would be increased. Thank you for your calm cooperation, they wrote. I laughed at that line, alone in my apartment. Calm wasn't what I'd call it. 2 weeks later, we went back anyway. You either reclaim places that scare you or you start letting them own you. The manager had followed through. New floodlights, uniformed security walking the rows, only one exit lane. Still, when we parked, I immediately counted how many vehicles sat between us and the road. I checked the mirrors more than the screen. Every unplaceable crunch of gravel made my shoulders tense. Nothing happened. A cop leaned against his cruiser by the gate, sipping coffee. Kids laughed again, quieter this time, like everyone understood how thin the fun really was. When the first film started, the projector's beam cut a silver path through the night. It should have been comforting. It always had been. Instead, I thought about how that same cone of light had once held a moving shadow that changed everything in seconds. Halfway through, Lauren bumped my knee. "You good?" "Just paying attention," I said. The truth was, I hadn't stopped paying attention since that night. Fear doesn't always push you into hiding. Sometimes it forces you awake, keeps your eyes open in a way comfort never does. It's a kind of brutal clarity. Now every October we still go. We still argue about which snacks to buy, still pile up blankets, still pretend the world outside the lot is on pause. But we park closer to the exit. We crack the windows. Our eyes flicker, almost unconsciously, toward the shadows between cars. It's not paranoia. It's memory dressed up as vigilance. I used to think the magic of those nights came from nostalgia alone. Now I think it comes from contrast. The warmth of routine set against the knowledge of how easily it could all tilt the other way. People love to say fear is irrational. I think fear is the most honest part of us. It just states the facts without softening them. You are never as safe as you think. That night at the drive-in, fear spoke in revving engines and muffled cries. It whispered under every horn blast, "Something is wrong." And still we go back. That's what people do. We spread our blankets, pass the cocoa, point our chairs at the screen, and trust that the light will hold the dark back just long enough for the credits to roll. The news barely noted what happened. A short segment about an armed man stopped before anyone got hurt. No names, no details. October still feels like movies to me. I just always park near the exit now. If hearing these stories made you realize that real danger doesn't need ghosts, just the right night and the wrong person, this is your kind of nightmare. Stick around for more. Tell me which story is going to live in your head tonight. And if you've ever driven past a cornfield in the dark and felt like something out there was watching, don't turn away yet. Keep your headlights on for 4 terrifying cornfield horror stories, where the only thing standing between you and what's in the rows is how fast you can hit play. Stay alert. Stay safe. I'll meet you in the next nightmare.